Hello everybody, cheers to the superb Saturday. We are discussing chapter number 3 from Hornbill, King Tut, discovering Tut, then the saga continues. I explained you what Tut is. Tut is short form of Tutankhaten or Tutankhamun, I'm sorry. I was not absolutely wrong when I said Tutankhaten because at the time he was known as Tutankhaten. It was later that he changed his name from Tutankhaten to Tutankhamun, and the reasons will be discovered here in the chapter I'll be telling you. So this is the second meeting of the chapter, dear students, and we are reading it on page number 25. So we had already covered half of the paragraph number 2 on this page. So I'll be reading it from the very beginning of paragraph 2, where we were discussing about how Howard Carter, having first discovered the mummy, left the mummy damaged, and it was further recovered or rediscovered by another archaeologist. Archaeologist means Howard Jahi Hawass, who was the Supreme Council. What was his position? We read it yesterday. Let me take you there. Jahi Hawass was the Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities. I told you what antiquity is. I told you about mummies, and I'll be telling you a great deal more today about King Tut and Egyptian belief. So let me flash the camera off. Yes, here we go. So in his defense, now you know what defense we are talking about. Carter really had a little choice. I'm reading it here. Carter had a little choice because it was unavoidable for him to do what he had to do. If he hadn't cut the mummy free, now what was his concern? Why he had to set the body apart by chiseling it away, by scraping it off? Why was it so necessary to free the body from the coffin? Because his concern was that, we had discussed it already though, the thieves would most certainly have circumvented the guards. Circumvented means to dodge, to cheat, to escape by uh, giving them a slip, that they could somehow dodge the guards and they would rip it apart to remove the gold. And in order to procure and ransack gold and other artifacts or treasure, they may damage the body. Because in Tut's time, the royals were fabulously wealthy, and they thought or hoped, I told you, I shared with you what their belief was. They thought they could take the riches with them. This is quite in contrast to what we believe today. We believe that one cannot take the riches along after death, but they were of altogether a different belief. They believed in life after death. Yes, they believed in afterlife, that there is a life after death, which they would call second life. So that is why they would bury their dead or mummify their dead and would bury along a lot of artifacts and a great treasure. Another reason why they would bury the body laden with the precious things and essential things, daily essentials and treasures, because in this way they would outdo the other kings. So it was a kind of competition also. King Tut was lavished with glittering gold goods. What were the things that were buried along with King Tut when he was mummified and laid to rest? Precious collars, inlaid necklaces. Inlaid means where the design is inlaid. Inlaid means self-designed, carved inside only. That is called inlaid. And bracelets were also buried, rings and amulets. Amulets are the things that are worn, that is believed to protect you from bad things, evils or spirits, or bad omens. Okay, so amulets were buried, ceremonial aprons were buried, sandals and sheaths for his fingers. Sheath is the cover here, and sheath for fingers and for toes. And now iconic inner coffin and mask, all these things were made of pure gold, dear students. Now, to separate Tut from his adornments, all these gold plated things, there was a need to separate the body from all these adornments because all the adornments they had caked on the body. Carter's men removed the mummy's head and severed nearly every major joint. Now you can see the word severed here. What does the mean? What does the word severe mean? To tear. Let me mark it. Where is it? Yes, there it is. So he torn apart every major joint of the body. Why? In his bid to separate the body from the adornments. And there was no other option. Once they had finished, they reassembled the remains. Once they had uh, got the body apart, when they had separated the body from the coffin and the adornments, not successfully, unsuccessfully, they reassembled all the parts of the body on a layer of sand in a wooden box with padding. Then they applied padding to it, that white colored strip, and that concealed the damage. Conceal means to cover, and that looked all the more same. And the damage was concealed this way. And once again, the king was laid to rest. This is what Howard Carter did, and he could not find anything substantial. So when he failed in solving those two mysteries about his life and death, he put the body again to rest. Because even then, medical science was not so advanced. So the forensic science was not so advanced. So he was laid back to rest. Archaeology had changed substantially in the intervening decades. And meanwhile, there was a revolution of medical science in the world of medical science. So considerably that had changed in the intervening decades. Decade is a group of 10 years. And now the focus was less on treasure and the focus was more on fascinating details of life and intriguing mysteries of death. Intriguing is something uh, that arouses your curiosity, right? So now the focus is on knowing how he died, and now the focus was less on treasure. It also uses because when Howard Carter first discovered the tomb, his focus was probably more on the treasure that was buried along with the king, and he focused less on the body. But now the focus was entirely about finding out about solving the biggest puzzles. And once again, I repeat, the puzzle was how old he was when he died and how he died. I also told you murder being the extreme possibility. It also uses more sophisticated tools, means more accurate medical science, including medical technology. In 1968, more than 40 years after Carter's discovery, yes, you must also learn it, that after Carter's discovery, what happened? An anatomy professor, 40 years later, anatomy is a study of human body. An anatomy professor X-rayed the mummy and revealed a startling fact. Startling means surprising and astonishing. What was that fact? Because at that time in 1922, when Carter discovered the tomb, he put the body out and he chiseled the body apart from the coffin. When he could not do much about it, he laid the body to rest. He reassembled the parts of the body on the layer of sand in the coffin, and then he covered the wooden box and he covered it all with the padding to conceal the damage, to cover the damage. But 40 years after Carter's discovery, anatomy professor X-rayed the mummy and he revealed what? He made it out. What? That beneath the resin also I told you yesterday, a fluidic substance that is applied to the body to mummify it so that it doesn't rot, sticky substances that result in condensation, as I told you. So, what was made out? He reported that beneath the resin that cakes his chest, his breastbone and front. Wait, we have to wait here. So he reported that beneath the resin that cakes his chest, his breastbone and front ribs are missing. Yes, he did not find the breastbone and the front ribs. Now that was something very startling, and that was something very unfortunate. And the entire blame was on Howard Carter. Today, diagnostic imaging can be done even at that time when this anatomy professor X-rayed the mummy. Why he X-rayed? Because CT scan was not available even then. But after a few more years, computed tomography technique was invented. And today, we all know that diagnostic imaging can be done with computed tomography, or you may say CT, by which hundreds of X-rays in cross-section are put together like slices of bread to create a three-dimensional virtual body. Yes, we can get three-dimensional images. That is the difference between X-ray and CT scan. It breaks up any part of the body into hundreds of slices and will show you from every angle, as in a class of anatomy. And could it answer two of the now the question was the burning question was, would CT scan be able to answer two biggest questions that were still lingering about, loitering about, unsolved? The questions were, how did he die and how old was he at the time of his death? Now this is to be noted, this is to be noted. King Tut's demise means death, was a big event, even by royal standards. He was the last of his family's line. As I told you, King Tut was the last heir of his family. He was the last successor. There was no one to follow him next. So, and his funeral was the that rattle of a dynasty. The entire empire, entire dynasty would come to an end with his death. So his death was the death of the dynasty. But the particulars of his passing away, his death, how he died, and its aftermath, the consequences are still unclear. Now, next paragraph, Amenhotep 4. This 13 minutes, till we have time. Amenhotep 3, who was Tut's father or grandfather, is also not known. So he was believed to be a powerful pharaoh. Amenhotep III ruled for almost 4 decades, 40 years at the height of 18th dynasty's golden age. Now this is a fact you must remember. Okay, Amenhotep III, not known for sure if he was Tut's father or grandfather, he was a powerful pharaoh who ruled for 40 years, and when at the height of 18th century, 18th dynasty's golden age. It was said to be as golden age at the same time, because that was the time of prosperity for the kingdom, for the dynasty, and things were going really good. And then his son Amenhotep IV, after Amenhotep III, who took the throne, Amenhotep IV succeeded Amenhotep III, and he initiated one of the strangest periods in the history of Egypt, ancient Egypt. Now this is again very, very important, because Amenhotep IV is said to be as wacky and crazy, right? And who was diametrically opposite to the other kings in line. So he initiated one of the strangest periods in the history of ancient Egypt. Now, what was so strange about his time of rule is to be learned here in the next paragraph. The new pharaoh promoted the worship of the Aten, the sun disk, and changed his name to Akhenaten, or servant of the Aten. What he did, he changed the religious god, because earlier the Egyptians, they would worship Amun, and therefore they would use word Amun as a suffix to their names. And it is a tradition, it was a culture that they add the name of the god they worship as a suffix to their own name. So now he started worshipping Aten, and therefore he used Aten as a suffix and changed his name from Amentup to Akhenaten. That means servant of the Aten. And he also moved the religious capital from the old city of Thebes to the new city of Akhetaten. Yes, he also changed the capital city and named it as Akhetaten, and now it is known as Amarna. Not only that, he was garrulous to the extent, and he further shocked the country. What he further did, not only that he changed his worshipping god from Amun to Aten, he also was so chauvinist. He was a bigot. That was an extreme level of bigotry. He shocked the country by attacking Amun and collapsing, demolishing all the temples and shrines of Amun, who was a major god, and he smashed all the images and closed all the temples. Ray Johnson, the director of the University of Chicago's Research and Center in Luxor, which is the site of ancient Thebes, he remarked that it must have been a horrific time in Egypt during the rule of Amenhotep IV. The family that had ruled for centuries was coming to an end, and then Akhenaten went a little wacky, crazy, and whimsical, right? Who is a bigot? A bigot is a person who, a despot, rather, you may say, that who believed in superiority of his own self, and who found himself to be right all the times, and who found others to be extremely wrong. So Akhenaten went a little wacky. How and in what way did he go wacky can come as a question, right? So it is time, dear students, let me flash up on the screen before we part for today. Yes, there we go. So I hope you are liking the chapter. The chapter definitely must have taken you to the pyramids of Egypt, and I hope you are able to imagine and visualize and picturize the things happening in Egypt at that time, how different a period it was, and how at different places uh, the beliefs of the people change, and how are they entirely different from what we follow here. So geographical boundaries also divide religious. This is how different beliefs and religions and traditions and cultures are followed across the world. So this is how we have a great deal of diversity, but still there is a great deal of unity. To learn more about Egypt and Egyptian culture, and to learn if the computed tomography or the advanced medical science of forensic would be able to solve those two lingering mysteries about his life and death, stay tuned and follow the second video, the other video on the chapter, where I would cover the remaining part of it. So thank you and have a nice day. I'll come tomorrow covering the remaining part of it. We'll conclude it tomorrow, dear students. Thank you and have a nice day.